Hello. This is 10 Philosophy Questions Part 2. So I'm going to dig into that website I told you about last time, operationmeditation.com, and take a look at the next 10 in line of their 65 deep philosophical questions. So we're going to cover questions 11 through to 20 this time, and I'm going to take a look at them. I haven't had a chance to sit down and write up answers and prepare anything, so I'm going to try and answer what I can, but I do think it's quite good to put yourself on the spot, even if it just means a bit of sort of sitting and thinking time. At least you'll get something that feels quite real and not prepared. So okay, so this is the first question, which is number 11. All right, 11 to 20. What is the truth? All right. So, all right, what is the truth to you? Truth. Is it the absence of a lie? No, I don't think that's specific enough, because the absence of a lie, it could still be untrue. You know, the person is only lying if he only lying if he's knowingly lying? Okay, he could mistakenly lie. He could do it out of ignorance, and then it's still not the truth. But the truth. What is truth, even before the truth? What is the concept of truth? It's the actuality of what you absolutely know is correct. It's sometimes something that we won't face up to. The truth is very often the very thing that we are scared to look at. We are scared to admit. That is truth. And if every single one of us did that, even if it was the most horrendous things ever that we came up with, that we said, if everyone could just be truthful completely to themselves and to everyone else, we would move forward massively as a species. Absolutely. Because yes, there'd be a lot of women going around thinking that dresses make their bums look big. But there would also be a lot of advancement of the human race, a growth, I believe, in a consciousness, in our realization of what we can actually become, because there wouldn't be so many obstacles in our way holding us back. You know, there are people that are scared of sharing that extra piece of conversation with somebody, and then they're held back. And then if you're holding one thing back, then there are so many other areas that will be held back as a result of it. And then you imagine every person doing that, and that's billions and billions of things being held back simultaneously on the same planet. And you know, you could say, oh well, chaos would ensue. It's just that you're not used to it, that's all. And what, chaos doesn't ensue? We haven't had chaos as part of our natural history of planet Earth. I know there's wars and everything else. If people were just truthful, even that might even stop the wars from happening. If people were to just say, well, you know, we want to invade because we want these resources of your country, you know, without coming up with a bullshit thing of it, and then the people could say, well, you know, we're not happy about that. But it's all about manipulation, isn't it? So what is truth? It is the absence of direct manipulation, and it is the realization of everything you know and everything you are without any bias concerned. That will be my answer. Alright, next question. What is reality? Well, it is the perception, and the perception of each beholder is reality, of course. Is reality real? Doesn't matter. If you were living in a matrix of some sort, then that matrix would be your reality. So what is reality? The scope of that which you perceive is reality. Because if there are other planes of existence, you know, other dimensions, if we were to look at the possible membrane theory, the loaves of slices of bread, as it were, slices of a loaf of bread. Don't know where I'm getting that and thinking ahead. Being different dimensions, slices of the same thing, we wouldn't be able to see extra sensory dimensional beings in their full dimensional sense, or possibly even see them at all. You know, there might be other things that exist on upper echelons of dimensional existence somewhere here and about. We might be on an extremely low plateau of dimensional sophistication. There might be things in and around us at all times that we can't see. You know, we can't incorporate them into our reality because we don't know they're there, but they are part of our reality, even though we cannot see them, perceive them, or heck, even begin to conceptualize them. They are part of our reality. So reality is that which is, but the realization of reality, unfortunately, can only be limited by the perception of the viewer. Alright, next question. Do you make your own decisions or let others make them for you? Well, this is more of a personal question, isn't it, rather than a steady philosophical thing, surely, because wouldn't there be a lot of people that make their own decisions, and other people that you know, they say, oh, you're either the sheep or you're the wolf, as it were, or, you know, some people are the shepherd. Hey, do you let others make them for you? I think the human race generally are living in a place where they are deeply unhappy right now. Okay, I've said this a few times before. If you get on a bus randomly and you hear the elderly people speaking, chances are they're going to be complaining about the government in some way, no matter which government's in, going on about the state of things, going on about the local councils, the lack of money. They will be unhappy, and they'll be moaning about it and saying, you know, this is going down the pan and so forth. The majority of these people, they know that the world is broken and wrong, and they know it needs fixing. But are they fixing it? No. Do they have the power? No, because they don't let themselves, because they let other people make decisions for them. Alright? If everybody's unhappy, everybody, right, could come to their senses, get together, and do something about it. But what is stopping them? What is stopping them? Something is, alright? And that's for a bigger video, that's for a bigger debate. What is stopping people? But we know something is, which actually tells us, in fact, in answer to that question, that we let others make decisions for us. I mean, when it comes even to a ballot, I would like, because, you know, you see the candidate, and you think, well, I don't like this about him, but, you know, this is interesting. I like this, but I don't like this about him. I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I definitely don't like this, so I definitely wouldn't vote for you. So you've got then the people that you would possibly vote for, you don't agree with this or that, you don't really like them, but you put a vote in for that person. But you don't completely like them, I bet, half the time, right? There's going to be some policy, something there in the manifesto that sort of made you a little bit concerned, but you thought, well, he's the best of a bad lot. There shouldn't be anything like that. There should just be another box there for you to tick, or for you to put an X in, vote of no confidence for the above. And someone once told me, oh, well, you can kind of do that because you can go along and you can spoil your ballot. But I want to know exactly what a spoiled ballot's going to mean. Are they just going to think someone's being thick? You know, are they going to just count it as someone being stupid? I want them to actually know that it's been physically acted. Someone has acted out physically against the system and said, no, I do not want to vote for any of the above. Please, some more options, tar, and so on. But overall, we make other people make decisions for us. and it's pretty bad. Overall, we also are forced into situations where we feel we have to do this to be able to, get by. But there's always a bigger fish. There's always someone else you've got to look out for, and then you end up with more responsibilities in life, and then you sometimes end up with, like, let's just say you have kids, and you have a wife or a partner or something, or a husband if you're a woman, and you end up with taking on their needs. And from a relationship point of view, at that point, it's not this. I mean, in some cases, it is that the other person's making decisions for you as certain partners, right? But sometimes it's because of them decisions are made for you. It almost feels like it is out of your hands because you have to be sympathetic. You have to be altruistic enough. So ultimately, we don't have control. Right, next question. What makes a good friend? I don't know. I've had so many people in my life before. I was growing up and different times in my life where I felt close to a person, and then time comes later where we've fallen out and we have nothing to do with each other, and that can happen. So was that person a good friend? Were they only momentarily a good friend? Is it something that can be resigned from as a position, or could it be argued that a good friend is someone who you wouldn't be able to have a split from? That is the essence of them. And in fact, then I'm not really too sure if everyone always finds what should essentially be considered a good friend. People find friends, of course. They find acquaintances and colleagues, and those aren't friends. And then they have friends, and those aren't good friends. And let's not even get onto this concept of best friends, because even those have had many times people that I would have thought were the best of my friend were having fallings out and issues, and I always tend to have issues with people, and it's always been the case that a lot of these people saw me as their best friend, but I never ever saw any of them as my best friend. You see, there was always some sort of divide there. Something I knew was wrong somewhere. But what makes a good friend? Perhaps someone that you still know, but then saying that, it could just be out of habit. Could you say someone you trust? That's a good start, actually. Trust, which we've already covered. Trust is a big thing, because if you give someone the truth and the full-on truth, you're actually uncovering yourself. You're actually leaving yourself vulnerable. And so if someone doesn't abuse you when you do that, then I suppose they are proving that they're a pretty good friend in that. But I think it's probably not worth trying to figure out what makes a good friend and whether a person is a good friend, because I think that's a slippery slope. If you try and define it, I think you can end up misunderstanding it. People and the relationships that people have are complex things, and they're sometimes decided on the strangest of ties. So let them be for what they are. What makes a good friend? Well, various things, and they are generally unimportant, because friendships don't always last, but those that do are perhaps the most meaningful, hopefully. Next question. Why do people fear losing things that they do not even have yet? Well, I don't think really that question makes a lot of sense, because I think people in this day and age, we've got the credit crunch and the lack of security in the household and generally for one's own income and state, that and the aforesaid unhappiness of the general populace, the people are acting in more of a wild abandon, I'd say, as a way of trying to let off steam to what is essentially the difficulties of modern existence. So you have like the binge drinking and the sleeping around and the raucous behaviour, and then you've got people who don't fear losing future pensions because they aren't even putting in for a pension. They have no plan in place. I mean, you see the things all the time on this that we're looking at a generation now who, come pensionable age, are going to be in a lot of trouble, are going to have some financial crisis on their hands, and it's because people aren't afraid of losing things that they don't have yet. And then, I mean, some degree of forethought might actually be good for them. We are caught up in a state of the here and now, where we think about, here, now, here is what's important. But the problem is, it doesn't exist anymore, because when I just went here like that, that's now past, that's gone. And then how far in the past is well, it's just relative. I can't get it back, so it doesn't matter if it was a few seconds ago, 10 minutes ago, 20 hours ago, or 4,000 days ago, or 1,000,000 years ago. It wouldn't matter. They are all the same. Like, I've got equal access to that moment, no matter how far away it is. So really, the future's important, unless you need to get internal, unless you need to meditate, in which case you need to clear your mind and do just the here and now. But the here and now is truly only you. That is here, that is present. When you go present, you need to lock everything else out and be pretty much in a meditative state. So it is your mind, and that's the here and now. Maybe it would be good if people worried a bit more about the future. Not even in an anxious way, but cared more, prepared more. Right, question 16. Who defines good and evil? Good and evil is defined in the minds and hearts of each person separately and uniquely. Good and evil are rubbishy stereotypes, to be honest. They are archaic. They are not worth bringing out in realistic terms. They work only in the mere realms of fantasy. I think many of you realise that there is no such thing as good and no such thing as evil. Only different sides of the coin. An act of good can sometimes be for evil intent, or the other way around. If we look at religion, which is supposed to be the way of judging us, keeping us in line in our morality, then religion, for example, you'd have a clergyman giving prayer over a soldier before he goes to war, and possibly the other side giving prayer to their soldier before they go to war, and they're both praying to a god deity, perhaps even the same god, and that's when it gets even funnier. And they come back safely, and then those two soldiers meet each other, and they both have an obligation to try and kill each other. So they can't both come back safely in that circumstance, surely, as we know that there's not going to be a divine intervention, because as to whether people think there were ever divine interventions in the past, there is absolutely no proof of them in the present. And I'm not getting into a religious debate on whether there was ever divine interventions that occurred in the past, but good and evil, archaic. What silly terms they are. You can't say that someone that's a mass murderer is necessarily evil. I mean, that's a very strong word. You'd have to like give that to a demon or a zombie or something, you know, something that doesn't exist. Okay, that's essentially the problem. And if it works on that side, no one is completely altruistic either on the other side of the coin. There has to be some degree of selfishness. In a panic, yeah, it doesn't matter that the nicest, most good person could behave in a terrible way if frightened, for example, might accidentally trample somebody. People think they are good, but in a disaster, that's the way they behave. They will go for the exit at the same time. They jump all over people. Then they'll kill and trample on strangers just because they aren't in their immediate family or circle right now. And that, it doesn't even mean that they aren't necessarily the best people that they could have met in their lives. They might be walking past or ignoring or trampling on someone who would have turned out to be the ideal partner to them, the ideal husband or wife to them, the ideal brilliant friend to them. It could have been someone who, in a different route down the trouser legs of time, have turned out to be someone deeply important to them, someone Lennon to their McCartney, as it were. But it doesn't matter, because you know they're just a stranger, and they'll treat them with the same contempt as they would an enemy in a time of emergency and panic. It's awful, isn't it? Everyone a part good and everyone's part evil, and to try and use those terms to people's behaviour completely misses the point, and from a psychiatric point of view as well. Sorry about that, that's my phone going off. There always seems to be a phone going off, doesn't it? I need to learn to switch all phones off. If it's not the mobile, it's the house line, though. Right, number 17. What is the difference between living and being alive? Okay. Well, that one shouldn't be too bad. Could you say that we are alive? Yes. Could you say that we live? Yes, of a sort. Could we say that a tree is alive? Yes. Does it live? Yes. And it depends how you mean live. If you mean living as in the act of getting about and doing things for the continuation of your own state, then indeed the tree does everything it needs to do to survive. We get out and maybe go to a nightclub or something, and the difference between going to a nightclub or not is living. Is that correct? Seems a bit shallow. But all living things and being alive, I think the important point here is to look at the fact that all of these things are symbiotically connected, that they are a circle of union, circle of life, that everything's connected. The animals, and we're going to get a little deep on you now, all right? We're going to go a bit hippie here, but bear with. And because of this, we are all, I suppose you could even go a bit pantheist on this and say that we are all as one. We are all Gaia, yeah? But the key here is not whether you are living or not, but whether you are sentient. So we have the unsentient living and the sentient living. That's the only distinction we really need to make. Right, the next question, 18. Is a wrong act okay if nobody ever knows about it? Well, you know, if somebody does something bad and nobody knows about it, it may still trouble them. It may play on their conscience, don't you think? This can happen sometimes. People can end up losing sleep, end up with some sort of post-traumatic stress type symptoms as a result of it. end up confessing because they can't live with it anymore. So it's not okay if the person can't cope with it, and it's okay if they can, I guess. But, you know, morality, which is the next question, who decides what morality is? So we'll blend straight into that as well. Morality is one of the hardest things to try and define, because morality is the sensibilities of the current people of that particular time. So as we move forward as an age of people, you know, as we become more spiritually enlightened, or if you want to make that sound maybe less kooky and hippie, just say personal growth, but in a mass manner globally, then we will redefine what we call moral as well. So morality is a thin veil that we use to judge ourselves, and really we're just small, frightened children and animals running round in a maze, hoping that we don't get lost, praying that there's a way out somewhere, but no one ever finds it. And it doesn't matter anymore, really. If you are okay with your wrong act, then what does it matter? You're only letting other people judge you, and at that point their judgment, their condemnation of you, it's not going to take back the fact that you thought that was okay. That's the issue, isn't it? That you've had that disagreement with the rest of humanity on that subject, that you feel that something's okay and they don't. Is a wrong act okay? I'm going to say that the individual would decide themselves. I personally don't think a wrong act should be called okay. I think that it's the beginning of a slippery slope. You have to say that it's not okay, and that sometimes if you're forced into a wrong act, that it's sometimes the better of two bad choices. And in fact, yeah, the day that a wrong act starts to feel okay is the day that perhaps you should consider that you've lost yourself. If you've got two possible outcomes to a bad situation and neither one of them are okay, and both of them end up as wrong, but you have to decide one, or you end up with two wrongs, you have to choose one, and does that make it okay that you had no choice? I think that the question is flawed, and that's why we're struggling with an answer, because it's a foolish question. Is a wrong act okay? Because what we should really be asking is, what is a wrong act? See? So I wouldn't worry too much about the question. Right, next one, number 19. Who decides what morality is? So we've been talking a bit about morality. Is it the church? Is it the state? The governments? Is it us, the people? Well, it's all of those things. You know, we are scared, frightened creatures, as I said before. And we are trying to make sense of all of this. And morality is another way of attempting to control and police us. And as the church weakens and weakens and weakens in power as the years move forward, see the aforesaid mention of speaking the truth, you see, that would annoy a lot of people, but then they wouldn't be looking at the truth. But that is the fact of what is happening, that law is taking over from from morality as the new morality, and people are being brought into line not from fear of not getting into heaven, but as they stop believing in heaven and things, they then live in fear of getting fined and going to jail, perhaps. But I think morality is each individual's breaking point on what is acceptable and what isn't. And because of the vast differences of opinions, personalities, upbringings, how much of a prude someone might be versus someone being brought up in a very open kind of family, those two people, they might be absolutely law-abiding, they might both attend church, they might be completely fine in every single way, but one might definitely consider that the other one is being immoral in something. You could say that the deeply religious person believes that the other, seemingly morally correct person, is being completely amoral by having a relationship out of wedlock, right? There are people that would argue that. Morality is another way in which others try to control us, and they need to be stopped from doing that. Morality is something that each of us must judge. No one person controls and owns the definitive concept of what is moral. Nobody. And if nobody can own it, nobody can tell you absolutely that something is not moral in action. So they could say to me, what you're doing is not moral. Hey. And finally, number 20. How do you know that your experience of consciousness is the same as other people's experience of consciousness? You don't. You have to assume that it is, because we are made the same. And there goes my phone again. If we all experienced a different consciousness, then it would make us complex creatures, rather more complex than perhaps we need to be to just get by. I mean, we've got all of these chemicals and electric signals and things working inside our bodies just to make us progress forwards and procreate and purpose of existence and life and so forth. We don't need to complicate it by those systems having mass internal differences somewhere in a subtle manner that makes flavour, for example, what a banana tastes like compared to another person's thought of what a banana tastes like. We have enough of that going on with differing taste buds. There are different degrees of quality to one's taste buds, for example, or one's sinus, which obviously affects your perception of taste and smell. So everything can affect your experience of consciousness. We have to assume that they are the same. We don't know that they aren't different. Scientifically, there's every likelihood that they are close to the same, if not the same. We know that small differences exist, as the example given before with taste buds. However, even if they were different, it actually doesn't matter. It's another one of those non-question questions. What's the point of even needing to ask it, to be honest? If you think that if you taste chicken, and supposedly everything tastes like chicken, and I taste chicken, and what we are tasting is different to each other, or the colour of blue that you're seeing is different to the colour of blue that I see, as long as you like blue and I like blue, it doesn't matter what we call it. I mean, we both recognise it as the same colour, even if it looks different to you than it does to me. Heck, at least we're not blind. You know, it doesn't matter. So stop being a Burke, I'd say, and asking such stupid questions. That's a start. And just enjoy the fact that you can see and smell and taste and actually have a consciousness. Don't worry too much about the differences in it. We've got more to worry about than the differences in consciousness. We've got to undertake an inner enlightenment, and if we realise a further consciousness as a result of that, then all's the better. But you know, you can't think about what you can't attain. And there we have it, Rob's view and manner towards philosophy, handled in 10 more questions. I hope you were able to stick with me through this. It was a bit on the longer side, but I'll see you in the next video.